Hey Valley Middle, welcome back to another G67 math video. Tonight we're going to be working with the measures of central tendency. Let's first start off with a trivia question for the night. Which statue is taller, the Statue of Liberty or the statue of Christ the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro? We saw that many times in the Olympics this past summer. All right, officially tonight our target is I can use the measures of central tendency to describe data. Let's do this thing. I bought a package of 12 M&M cookies and counted the number of candies in each. Here's the data I got. So there was 3 in the first cookie, 8, etc., all the way to 10. Describe the data using the measures of central tendency. Well, this sounds a little intimidating at first, but it's really not so bad. What we're asking you really to do is talk about the mean, the median, and the mode. So let's start off what I think is the easiest one is the median. Whoops, where's my numbers? Here they are right here. So we're just going to take and slide these guys up, and I'll move this guy back out of the way. You start off with the median by putting the numbers in order from the smallest to the greatest. Include all the duplicate numbers. And then you just start going through and you start hacking them off from each side. You're working your way towards the middle. Sometimes it gets a little monotonous, but it'll pay off in the end because you know your answer will be correct. All right, I'm getting nearer to the middle here. Notice how I keep going back and forth from side to side like you're getting sleepy. And then this guy was right here. So I ended up with, I didn't have a middle value. My middle value is actually in between the 9 and the 9, which is 9. If this was an 8 and this were a 9, it would be 8.5. But it's real simple here. Our median is a value of 9. That's our middle score. And we know it's the middle score. We work from the ends towards the center and got that center or middle score. The mode is the next easiest, I think, and you're just looking for the most popular, or as I like to say, the mode popular. So let's take a look at those values, and you can already see that there are 5 9s. That's the most popular value is 9. So that's pretty simple. Now we just have to figure out the mean or the average. To figure out the mean or the average, what you have to do is add them all up and divide. I like to think of it like Yoda. Me add and divide. So I've added all these values up and I got 100. I take that value of 100 and I divide it by 12 because there was 12 different cookies. And the average is 8.3. Approximately 8 1/3 cookies, or 8 1/3 M&Ms per cookie. Now, of course, there's not a third of an M&M in any cookie, but that's what our mathematical average is, 8.3. The other two things that really aren't measures of central tendency, but I think are important to look at when you think about data like this, is what the range is. And you'll notice that the range on this is 7. The 7, that means that's the highest number. 10 is the highest number of M&Ms minus the smallest one. So there's a range of 7 M&Ms between the highest cookie and the lowest cookie. And then are there any outliers? And I think it's important to think about outliers because in this case, there was 3. 3 doesn't really fit in with the clusters of data. The rest of the numbers are all clustered between 8 and 10. And 3 is kind of just out there on its own, that outlier. It's important to think about outliers because outliers can impact the overall average and sometimes the middle score as well if there's a lot of outliers. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look here at some vocabulary for the day. Measures of central tendency. What they're really looking for here is a single value that tells how a group of data cluster around a center value. So mean, median, mode, these are those, they each give us one value that tells us about the group of data and how it clusters around the center. The median tells us what that middle number is. The mode talks about the most popular. Again, these are all single values, right? Not a group of 12 numbers like we started off with. And then the mean, that's the average. And I put in there how I think of that Yoda thing. Me, add, divide. Strong with the Jedi. Okay, and then I also put in range. Range is that difference between the highest and low value. We talked about that. That's the high minus low. And the outliers are those scores that are way out there. They don't really fit there with a general cluster of data. So let's take a look at another one. It's fitting that we do this one here about my truck Max because I'm actually sitting in it as we work it. So here are the prices I paid for diesel fuel for Max the last few weeks. I paid $209, $214, $219, $229, and $229. So describe the data using the measures of central tendency. Well, okay, and let's take a look at that middle score here and see if I can get that to pop in here. And I did some of the work for us already. I'm just going to take and move this guy up here so you can see it a little bit better. I already did some of the work on this for us. I crossed off the first couple. I started working towards the middle on the median. And you'll see that in this time here, there is, I can't grab it. I can get one here though. You'll see that this time here, there actually is a center or middle score, and it's 2.19. So my median or my middle value is $2.19 per gallon. The mode, well, again, if I slide this down over here so you can see it, you can see that $2.29, that was the most popular amount I paid. Okay, now the mean, I have to add them all up, me add and divide. So if I add those guys all up, I get a total of $11. If I take that $11 and I divide it by the 5 different times I purchased diesel fuel, I get $2.20. So the mean or the average price was $2.20 per gallon. All right, in the range, well, there was a 20-cent range in gas because it was from $2.29 down to $2.09. So about 20 cents difference or range between the different prices I paid. And there weren't really any outliers there. I mean, all of them were clustered pretty closely. Now, in the next video we're going to do, which I would encourage you to watch, I'm going to throw an outlier into this one, and we'll see what happens when when you do that. That impacts the overall score. Every score that you add will skew the score somewhat or change it, but the score is skewed or kind of misrepresented a little bit when you throw an outlier in. And I've got one where I paid $1.03 for diesel fuel because I had a dollar off a gallon coupon. So actually $1.09 off. All right, let's have you try one here. So Tara went trick-or-treating at 7 houses on her street. She received the following number of treats at various houses. Describe the data using the measures of central tendency and round your answer to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to scroll up here and let you take a look at that data. And why don't you go ahead and give me the measures of central tendency for this group of data. All right, let's see how you did here. I'm just going to close this down. So the median, I got 3. There were 7 values there, and the middle one was 3. The most popular number, or the mode, was also 3. Remember that mode popular. The mean, 6.5 pieces. When you add all of these guys up, I had 46. 46 divided by the 7 scores was 6.5. The range was 29. That's because she got a bag of candy from her favorite neighbor there. 30 pieces in there. That is definitely an outlier, and that's definitely impacting the average. Take a look at this here. 6.5 pieces. She got 2s, 3s, and 4s at most of the houses. It's that 30, that outlier, that was really impacting that. But again, we'll take a look at how that skewed the data in the next lesson. All right, time for you to go ahead and try a video or try a problem on your own. Find the measures of central tendency for the test scores of these 10 students. So here are the student numbers, and here are their scores. Go ahead and find me the measures of central tendency for those. Yeah, I know I didn't give them to you. You've got to figure out what the words are yourself. We've done them a number of times. Okay, let's go ahead and check out the answer to the trivia question. Which statue is taller? Well, the Statue of Liberty is taller. It's actually 305 feet with its pedestal, or 151 feet from its base to the tip of her torch. Now, Christ the Redeemer is 125 feet with a pedestal, or about 98 feet from head to toe there. Pretty cool stuff. Talk to you later. Thanks for watching. Hope you watch the next video. 11.4b. What happens when you vary, or how did the measures of central tendency vary when you add or subtract a value? Thanks.